And if people were really watching, then they wouldn't say, I can't believe this council unanimously voted in a tax increase, because we didn't. There was 3 outliers, myself, Andy McGrogan, and Mayor Clark. So be careful what you throw out, but you don't throw, it's that whole saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch, brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. Well, one of the fears when you're doing a podcast is that you get a guest who is shy and retiring and you can't get 2 words out of your guest. I don't think that's going to happen this morning.
Stop it. I actually tell people the easiest way to remember my name is just because I'm shy. Shy is short for me being shy and introverted.
You are, yes.
There you go.
Shila Sharps, candidate for re-election to Medicine Hat City Council. Welcome to the porch.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
The last 4 years, that's probably one of the things that people have asked you the most about. The last 4 years have been, you've been at the eye of the hurricane. What's that been like?
Well, you know what they say about the eye of the hurricane, it's actually quite calm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I always tell people, ask us if you want to know about the last 4 years. Don't ask social media. Don't ask Facebook. Don't ask Instagram. And don't ask people that weren't there. Ask the 8 of us. And whether we agree or not, but you'll get the actual what happened. And, you know, I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday and nothing against my council team and peers, but I said, let's look at it this way. I stand by the fact that during that August 21st day, I do believe there's a certain way to treat employees. That's it. And I called a point of order. At the end of the day, they could have found it, get lost, Sharps, like you're an idiot. Like we disagree, there was nothing wrong. But that's not what happened. The lawyer and the judge both found that stood. What went horribly wrong was the sanctions. So I always say this, so the sanctions got thrown and the guilty version still stood. So I guess I didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But, you know, some people are opposed to, well, you should be able to do what you want. And I said, we have to hold administration accountable. We don't have to humiliate them. And I don't ever believe that was her intention. I want to be really clear. I do not believe that was the mayor's intention. I don't believe that at all. What I do believe that is she was just so intense on doing what she was doing at that moment because she had figured something out. And that's where the communication comes in. It's hard to support when you didn't know. And I've said this out loud, retrospectively, I wish we would have had all that information, but we didn't. And that's not a blame at all. It's just what happens when you have 1 full-time person and 8 part-timers. We don't get the same focus and the same information at the same time. So I do feel bad for her because I think her intention, people say, oh, I gave her the wrong deal. At the end of the day, I stopped it. We all have choices. Sure, maybe I didn't stop it. Maybe she said sorry. Maybe the city manager said sorry. Maybe council didn't throw the book at her. There's lots of things that could have changed. And I think we all play a part.
So from that date in August of 2023.
The day before my hole-in-one, yeah.
You got a hole-in-one?
I did the very next day, okay. Yeah.
What happened internally around the table? Relationships fractured?
Not as bad as everyone tells me they are. So
yeah, that's what I would like to get into.
Okay,
because,
sure.
Because, you know, we hear things, but we never get the chance to hear it from someone who was standing in the fire.
Yeah, and I have been saying it, but I hear all the time, there's a couple of mayoral candidates that are saying, it's so fractured in the infighting. I'm like, there is? Man, I must be late. Do we all get along? Yeah. Do we all love each other and go out for dinner? No. But I don't do that with anybody. That's not why I was elected. And it's kind of one of the things I ran on, Brian, was I always say the old boys club is not what anybody needs. And it's never about old and it's not about boys. It's a way of thinking and it's about protecting and covering those that you work with and that you're friends with. And you start this whole, it's the old boys club. They're just covering for each other. And I said I would never do that because I don't do that. So, but part of that is that going out drinking together. And so I don't do any of that because that's not what we're elected to do. We're elected to come to the table, work as a team to execute the motions are on the table, But we should never be coming to that table as okay, we've discussed in the back room and here's what our vote is. That's awful. You as a citizen should know exactly how we got to a vote. And if people were really watching, then they wouldn't say, I can't believe this council unanimously voted in a tax increase, because we didn't. There was 3 outliers, myself, Andy McGrogan, and Mayor Clark. So be careful what you throw out, but you don't throw, it's that whole saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right?
Or the other sharing too is don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Yeah. Actually, that's much better. I like that one.
Yeah. Internally in City Hall, we also heard, and again, because you have a background in human resources, that it was not a very happy place to work the last couple of years, with the people being, the door revolving all the time from the top down. What was your...
What's my take?
Yeah.
So I think 2 things, and I want to make them 2 different issues. So people were correlating the story they were writing about council with the facts that were happening at the City Hall. So they were then saying one was the instigator of the other. These just happened to be 2 different stories that were happening at the same time, except for there is some members of council that obviously dislike maybe the chief elected, which is unfortunate because she's one of the smartest people you'll ever meet, hands down. So get past your ego that just everybody there has got something that they're bringing to the table. However, now going back to your side, so there was this I've never seen the staff unhappier, and it's because of council. We have nothing to do with staff. So put the ownership where the accountability is, and maybe we can solve the problem. But that's like blaming, Studio on Second for the price of tea in China. One has nothing to do with the other. So let's not correlate it, because it's not correlated. I think when you start seeing from an HR perspective, you're watching people being walked out. Council was never informed of these, and administration doesn't feel like they need to inform us. Do I agree with that? No. Do I stand alone? There's not a majority for sure. And so that's part of it, right? You just go with the flow. But from an HR perspective, absolutely, that changes the tone of your client or your staffing. So you never know. There's always that uneasiness of, well, if that person didn't have progressive discipline, that means they can fire anybody at any time. And so that's the story that gets told, because that's the story that happened. So you can't minimize what these employees are feeling, because it's valid. Yeah.
Well, working in an environment where you're walking on eggshells, nobody gets the job done, and they don't get a job done right.
No. And then what you end up seeing is that it is fractured. So I think there's some truth to the story of fracturing. It's just not at the right level.
Okay.
So who you hire in that top position is critical. And let me be clear, we're not talking about anybody here. Who you hire is critical, but how you manage is also critical. And, one of the things I will always suggest to the next council, and I'm going to be suggesting it to the acting city manager, is that the first thing the next council needs to do, on top of all the other mandatory training, is have HR training. Even if it's just, how do you manage an employee? Because you can have really good jobs and really good careers and never have the focused training you need to manage the top position. That needs to be done.
So when you started 4 years ago, you came in as a rookie councillor.
Sure.
And did you learn anything about HR? You already had the background, but were there things inside of City Hall that you were doing that you maybe thought later, oh, gee, maybe I shouldn't have done that?
No. No.
Did you feel like you had the ability to go to a city employee and say, I want you to do this?
No, we don't. And we don't have the authority or the right. So we only have one employee. Council can only go. So if I send an email to any of the city managers, normally I would CC council. After a while I didn't, because I'm not sure who was that, I don't want to force interest, but we actually cannot go up to city employees. So, if I want something done, if I have a question about something, I actually have to go right to the city manager.
So there's a process.
There is, and and then that person would usually allocate it to a managing director, and it's flowed down. It's a little bit, complicated. I would much prefer to see a process where it's director and above, or even managing director, where I can reach out and just CC the sitting manager. It just seems like the flow would be so much easier. But
Yeah, because, you know, people on the street say, well, I'm going to call my counselor because I've got a pothole on my street and I want it fixed and I want action now.
Yeah.
So, you know, you get an angry voter who calls you up. And
yeah. And the first thing I do is I show them online where to do that. And then I say, but I'm happy to take care of this one, but can I come over and can I show you how to do it? And I'll tell you, most people like, you'll come over? Like, yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. You want me to come over? Because I'll come over.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, okay. And so most people are so open to hearing that they had these solutions. So there's no point in saying, well, just go to this website and do this. I always say, I'm happy to take care of it, but can I show you how to do it going forward? Just in case I'm on vacation and you're going to get irritated if you can't get a hold of me. So
has the improvement among the staff, the attitude among the staff improved in the last 2 years, or is it still?
I think in the last 3 to 4 months, we've seen a bit of a change. But I get it. Like, they want stability, and they want to know. I'm going to say this about employees. They just want to do their job. Employees just want to come in and do their job. But the one thing, so I want to say that about employees, but I also want to say one thing that I feel like we need to get back to as a whole is administration must be there at the will of council. And a council is there at the will of the people. And I think both parties have forgotten that a little bit. So if you remember, probably, 4 months ago, I brought in a motion to do a non-statutory public hearing on the transportation master plan. And it was defeated. And I was so upset because for months I was convinced that we had a problem at Division Avenue. And I kept getting pushback saying, there's no problem. It's your problem. You're biased. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm biased. I'm hearing it. It was in trickles at the time. But I said, I do think we need a non-statutory hearing. Like, let's just hear them. No, we've done lots of public engagement. And I said, I've been to them. No, there's not lots. There's 2 or 3 people that show up, nod, smile, and walk away. That's not public engagement. That means you've done it. It doesn't mean we're getting it. So there's 2 different things, right? So I was sad when we were defeated because I really think that councils should be wanting to hear from the public, not on every item. Like, they've got to understand they also voted for us. Let us do our jobs. Mm-hmm. But this is a doozy. This is how our streets are going to be made. And the uproar after that meeting was insane. So I was a little gawky for 2 weeks, let me tell you. I was pretty much, I'm sure they wanted to throat punch me. I was pretty unbearable. So when they came back and said, would you like to make this motion? I think it was Councillor McGrogan. He goes, I think we need to do a non-statutory. I'm like, really? That's weird.
Where'd that idea come from?
He says, would you like to make it? I'm like, oh no, you guys can eat all the crow on this one. I'm good. So I think Councillor Hyder made it, which I'm good with, because it always should have been in front of the public. Just, and you know, we should never wait till people are angry to hear from them. We want to hear from them so we make better decisions. So that is the will of the people. But people need to come in there and give us those thoughts kindly, rationally, and with respect. This isn't about saying you suck, because that transportation master plan was actually approved not by this council, right? So, and councils don't get involved in projects. If you want us involved in projects, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Right? So
that one of the questions that I've heard on the street is, well, how in the world did council approve that on Division Avenue?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? Who signed off on that?
Yeah.
And
so if you look at the 2010 plan, it was signed off in 2013.
2013. So that's 10 years plus.
Yeah, and which was always my argument. We cannot be executing something that's 15 years old or 13 years old at the time, or 12 years old. I can add.
I said there'd be no math.
Oh my God. So you shouldn't be executing. So we need to go back. And so they did go back and do those open houses, but it's like I said, if you put up, and the pictures were amazing. They looked gorgeous, but at no time did I see one lane. At no time. And so you expect to be that level of detail. So I know some of the, citizens was really bad. Why didn't you ask? Well, hang on. There was questions asked, absolutely. So I don't believe there was an intent to deceit, but I also don't think there was an intention to go into, because we're very conscious of getting into the weeds, right? Because that's what we get accused of doing. So one of the things I said in retrospect is I think you need to have all the pretty pictures you want, but on the side you need to say original, 8 meters wide, new, 6.4 meters wide. And then they'll go, oh, wait a minute, where's that 1.5 meters? So it gives them the information to ask the questions, and then you've got a public engagement. Otherwise, you just have public nodding, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the question I asked on Riverside. If you remember watching that, I said, so if I go out there with the tape measure and it's exactly 8 meters and you're done, you go in and you rip up the roads because, right, they said they weren't going to make any changes. If I go and measure, is it still 8 meters? No. Well, then there's changes. No, it's just new engineering standards. I said, let's not play verbal games. And I don't think that's the intention. I think the intention is this is what they see as fact. So it's like we've got this going on. They're saying this, we're hearing this, but we all got to remember it's the public. So what is the public? You can hear what the public is saying. You took our lane away. We don't like the red brick. I hate the red brick, so I get it. It's slippery. And we can do beauty and we can do bikes and we can do all of that with cars on the road.
I think it might have been Lindsay Clark, mayor, when she was here with us on the porch, who said that they didn't know that people were driving in the parking lanes on Division Avenue.
I did. So in all fairness, I don't know if you watched that meeting where one of the engineering managers said, but Councillor Sharps, that is a parking lane. It was underutilized. I said, absolutely, because it was utilized as a roadway. I said, but how do we not know that? So, but that's my expectation. But reality is their expectation is that I knew that it was a parking lane. Right. So I want to defend them a little. Yes. Yes. Yeah. But I drove that every day because I live in Vista. So I'd come down College, I'd go up Division, and I always took that inside lane because it cut me out past everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where that whole we're not hearing each other. Right. So that's why I think these public engagements are so important. But I think we have to change what we do. It's not about staff sitting in a room with pretty pictures and we nod and smile. We have to be so clear. This is, an 8-inch tall glass of water with, not here's a glass of water and it's really a shot glass. Like let's be super clear. Yeah. And then maybe our engagement would have been different.
The last 4 years, I'm not sure if I would have been on that council, if I would be asked myself to re-up for another 4 years. I might go running and screaming into the night, but you're not.
No, because again, what people say and what is true are two different things. So we go into council every day, we read, or every other Monday, we read our packages, we go in there, we debate, and I hear, well, this council needs to work as a team. And I always say, so you want 8 people that all have the same thoughts to go in? No, you don't. That's all great until it's something you don't agree with. Then you want that voice at the table. So what has really changed from this council to the past councils is we said we'd bring everything out into the open and kicking and screaming, but it did happen. That comes at a price. That comes at a price. But I guess I knew that price. I'm surprised that people didn't know that price. It's like all of a sudden having a camera in your living room. Right? You don't, all of a sudden, all the family secrets are out there and you go, damn it. But that's reality. So this whole, they're infighting and they can't get along. It's just narrative. Do I get along with everybody at the table over every item? No, but we always walk out of there chatting and whatever. Last night it got pretty heated on some of the stuff. It doesn't matter. That's your job. And then you walk out and you're talking about what you're doing tomorrow. Okay. It's not what people say it is.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you were able to clear that up for me. Let's take a look at where we're going now in the next 4 years. One of the big items I think that the next council is going to have to decide on is the MCC. Whether council will move some of the responsibilities for the operations of the energy division into a municipally controlled corporation. Where is Shila Sharps on that issue?
So Shila Sharps is not opposed to an MCC. I was just opposed to an MCC right now. Council made a motion, I think, 3 years ago, and it took an exorbitant amount of time. And that's just the way things roll in a municipality. But unfortunately, it rolled out just before an election. And I don't think I have... Council of the future needs us to make our decisions and execute things, but not $5 million. That is... Could you imagine if we agree to that, staff start spending the money and the next council is like, So now we're going to reverse it. That is not fair to the taxpayer. We're acting like this taxpayer is like an open debit card, and it's not. And I still had questions with the MCC. I still feel It sounds like I still have accountability as a councillor. And I've always been a firm believer, if I have accountability, then I want the responsibility to go with that. But don't make me accountable for something that you're keeping me out of the decision-making process, right? So kind of like the roads. Council doesn't actually have anything to do with the roads. If you want to hold me accountable and say, well, council's responsible, then I'm going to say, fine, give me the plan, right? But you don't get to do both. So same with this. I don't want to say, we need to negotiate how this looks like. Because if I'm accountable to the taxpayer for the decisions of an MCC, then how does that look? So I have a board of directors that are making all this money, and I don't know what they're doing, but I have to be responsible for what they're doing. I think there's a cleaner way to do that. The second thing is, I think our rates need to be the most competitive in the province before I ever agree to putting another curtain up where the public is excluded. So as you probably know, I've been pushing the whole redesignation or reorganization of the medium and small business commercial classes, because I feel that they're unfair to some businesses, like punitively unfair to some businesses. You're always going to have a slight discrepancy. I understand going from small to medium, but when you have a huge discrepancy, that's a bit of a problem. So my fear with an MCC was we were putting in yet another curtain where the average citizen couldn't come talk to council about their issues. So if we're going to remove that, it better be at the benefit of the citizens, not at the detriment.
Another item, and this is a result of the most recent council meeting, is the person at the top, the city manager.
Yeah.
That is going to be a tough nut to crack.
No, you have to walk me through what your question is here. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. You have, I guess, given the intention to the city manager.
Right, to terminate, yes.
So this, we got 3 weeks as of this morning's recording, I think, before the vote. So the next council, I don't know if you're going to get all of this.
3 weeks before the vote, but this council's in until October 31st.
Okay.
Till the next swearing in.
Yep. So will you be able to get this
absolutely.
Cleared up?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just to refresh people now, what was the result of the meeting on the 29th of September regarding the intention to...
So under the MGA, councils must give notice in public. So I don't know if people knew that. It wasn't us just being, what are they doing? It wasn't. So I think it's 206.2, I could be wrong, of the MGA that states council must give notice of intention. And so what this allows now is an opportunity for whoever is in that position to say, you know what, I want to talk to you guys. So they can come and talk to us and say, you know what, I think you're making the wrong decision. Here's my ABCD. Or that person might turn around and say, yeah, peace out, we're done. So this... But because it's the top position, and if you recall, when we appoint the person, it's done in public. Mm-hmm. So the removal of the appointment must be done in public as well.
Okay. So that might not carry over for a new council.
It won't carry over for a new council if I have anything to do with it.
Because that probably wouldn't be fair to them because they're coming in.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay. Another issue, and you've heard it probably in the forums, is people with their property taxes and their utility rates. People say they can't afford another increase. So I think there's already one in the books for next year.
Yeah, so you do 2 years at a time so they can budget.
Cycle,
yeah. So again, I voted against it. I am a firm believer. I own a business. I own some commercial buildings. I own my property. And I use this example all the time. So I have an old commercial building just down the street, and it's old. I keep it up to date, but my air conditioner blew this early in the summer. So I'm like... And an air conditioner on a commercial building is not cheap, right? So you're going, ugh, damn it. Well, I wanted to do ABC, but now this blew up. So the question in front of me is, do I do A, B, C, or do I do D? It was never, I bet you if I raise my invoices to my clients, I can cover everything. And that's what I feel like we do. And maybe that's a very simplistic way, but I feel like we think the taxpayers are bank. And I think we need to get back to how many doors is there, what's our growth or what's our population, and then establish, in my mind, a ratio. And I use the fact that I worked for a big U.S. company, and I use it this way. I had like 6 locations. I had India, China, U.S., 2 in the U.S., and 1 in Canada. And I'd be like, okay, for every 100 people or these were thousands, but we use this ratio. For every 100 people, I get an extra payroll person, right? So, but until we hit that threshold, we didn't get another person. And it wasn't 100, it was 200. So in other words, if I wanted more people, I would have to figure out how to operationally get them growing so I could hire somebody. So we were all working towards the same goal of growth. So until we have that growth, so in this example, you'd say, okay, there's 67,000 people. Oh, maybe it's only 700 people that work for the City of Medicine Hat on a full-time permanent basis, right? So since staffing, and I'm not saying that is it, so I'm just using numbers very loosely, so don't get me wrong. I would rather be the employee that pays well, good benefits, good pension. These people are taken care of, their mental health, their physical health, their families are good. They can go get the medication that they need, and they love to be at the City of Medicine Hat. I have never been a believer throwing more people at a job creates less work. It actually sometimes creates more, because now you've got so many different people doing the same thing. It actually creates redundancies and not an efficiency. So I think that, and I don't think you have to go lay off anybody either. I think that we just look at, okay, if we were to go with this methodology of 1 per every 90 people, what does that look like for staff? And then look at where we are and say, okay, well, how do we change that? Well, do we have a lot of consultants? Maybe this has nothing to do with staff, and it's the fact that we have 100 consultants. Why do we have 100 consultants if we have 900 staff? If we need that expertise, okay, then I have to question, then why do you have 3 staff in that area, right? So which is it? Or can it be balanced? But those are, and I don't know that I have the answers. What I'm saying is those are the questions. Mm-hmm. And those are the questions I feel council should be asking, but we're right now not asking because we're told that's not our purview. So that's not blame. And I'm saying let's be. If you're going to be the one that gives the money, ask the hard questions.
Who told you it's not your purview?
It's always been council kind of gets pushed back with administration on budget items. So if you listen to the budget meetings, everyone uses here's the bag of money, you do with it what you want. I'm like, here's the bag of money and what's going to what, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think we should be opposed to asking that question. And it's not about questioning them, and it's not about trying to find out if they're doing something wrong, because I don't think that's the intent. I think it's about sometimes fresh eyes gives a different perspective on something, right? So when you turn around and ask a question, so here's a good one that there's a group out there mad at me about. I'm pushing Heron Crossing, the pathway, only because we allowed it. So it's like if I build a house and I don't put the shingles on, is the city going to let me get away with not putting the shingles on? Hell no. They're going to come back and say, you're accountable, put the damn shingles on. So in this case, we're accountable. The city's accountable. 15 years ago, we gave the guy the bonds back. Okay, guess you're accepting responsibility. There's 300 homes in Desert Bloom. There's another 19, and then there's another 8. But there's human beings on those roads. That's the bottom line. So I'm not saying that should be the number one priority, but if we don't have a sidewalk here and we have a sidewalk here that just needs repair, let's get them in and then do repairs. We shouldn't be doing extensions, repairs, rebuilds until people have basic necessities, because we're charging them for all their necessities. Mm-hmm. They pay a tax rate based on having all those necessities.
Yep. City has a history, too, of Ross Glen when it was developed, and all the finger parks didn't get developed by the developer, and the city ended up taking that over, too. So you have that in the background as well.
So it shows that we should have probably known better. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not about blaming current staff. It's not about blaming anybody, but it's about taking accountability. And I feel like there's this real way of thinking out there that when you push accountability, they reverse that into blame. And it's not. It's accountability. So it's the same token if the safety guy shows up in my office and said, your tiles aren't on your roof. No one's going to give me a break, because that's their job to hold me accountable. But it's our job to hold them accountable.
Okay. Economic development is another key issue in this election, and as I've said on many of these podcasts, it's sad because economic development has been an issue in every election that I have watched since 1978, so maybe we're not doing it right, I don't know. But economic development can grow your tax base, so then maybe then you have some leeway, wiggle room to do some of the other things that you want. So your thoughts on where we've been over the last 4 years and where you'd like to see it go in the next 4 years.
Sure. Well, I will say that, first of all, nothing comes to fruition in the term that you're working on. So, and that's just reality. So anything that is happening in these past 4 years, you probably won't see for a little while, because there is some good things that they're working on. We're not going to see it in our lifetime. We were, not lifetime, sorry, in our tenure. We were hoping that it would, but, there's things not on our end at all that just stop that. I think that the upset over economic development is valid. It's just not being pointed in the right direction. So people, very simple. I think we need to make this more simple than it is. The community just wants to see some growth. But I always say, what is that growth that you want? Are you looking for 100,000 or are we happy at 80? What is it that you really, really want? And I think that's some conversations they need to have, because as you get 20 to 30,000 more people, guess what? That's apartment buildings. That apartment building you don't want in your neighborhood, that is going to be there. Those multifamily homes, those 8-plexes, that's all the stuff that we also hear you don't want. Well, you're going to have to put those in, because we only have so much land. So I always say to people, decide what it is you want before you say there's no growth, right? So now, growth industrial-wise, we will have to work with our partners, and that's going to take good relationships. Redcliffe, Cypress County, and Medicine Hat really worked hard in the last 4 years to work on our relationship. And now we do. We have a great relationship of trust. We're moving forward. And that is appealing to industry. It is not just about the city of Medicine Hat.
Our time is getting short here, but the two other issues that I wanted
to
touch on quickly is the Sama Solar Project.
Yes.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
That is not as simple as it sounds. There's still not all the information's out in the public, and unfortunately won't, because there's some third party. So I can't answer that without breaking some third party confidentiality, but I will say there's way more to it. I will also say that from a person that wants more economic development, when you're talking big industry, you will always have the conversation of alternate sources of energy. There isn't one big organization or multi-level that is interested in coming into single source. They must. So the people that are opposed to solar, they need to understand that comes at a price. We will lose some of that bigger industry.
Okay. And the other one that I wanted to get into was the Medicine Hat Exhibition and Stampede. They asked for money to help upgrade their facilities.
What's the question? Sorry.
Are you in favor, or are you still on the fence?
I've never been on the fence. I have an answer. So what you saw was pushback from administration to say, we want to take it back and do a little bit more deep dive, because this is taxpayer dollar. I get it. So council has said, okay, we'll make a motion to do that, or we'll make a motion to go get a study that's relevant, because costs has changed as we keep going. I am not opposed to helping them at all. I'm not opposed to helping anybody if we have the funds to do it, especially if they're part of our vital economy. What I am opposed to doing is, so it's like me going to a bank and saying, I need a loan for $100,000. And they say, sure, what's your equity? I'm like, none. None. But I want it. Oh, that's adorable, Shila. What's your T4 say? 0. And they just stare. Come on. So everybody has to be part of the solution. So if you want 100,000, show, and I asked this in the very first meeting, tell me what the Stampede Board has done to raise money. And the answer was, I don't think we have at that point. So, okay, that's fine. I get that. What's the plan to raise money, and how much are you planning to come to the table with? Because if we're going to use taxpayer dollar to fund you, they're going to want to know those answers, and justly so.
Shila Sharps, candidate for re-election to Medicine Hat City Council on October 20th. Thank you.
Thank you.